You know, people now got 2 years training experience and they want to do a Circa max phase with fucking chains and bands and, you know, fucking.
You got to get that fucking 250-pound squat.
Yeah, fucking.
Get the fuck up. Simon says, get the fuck up. Throw your hands in the sky.
The question is, how do you peak for a meet using the conjugate method? Here's the thing, is if you're asking that question, then you're a beginner or you're an intermediate. So the way that you peak is you don't use a Circa max phase. You know, forget about the Circa max phase. All right, that's not designed for beginners. It's not designed really for intermediates. Just use the basic waves. There's 3-week waves, 4-week wave, 5-week wave, whatever wave that you're using, you just wave. And then you make sure that your last training day, your last training squat would be week 1 of your training wave. So you'd have week 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 is going to be the heaviest. You drop down to week 1, and then that's the Friday before the Friday before the meet. So like 8 days, say 8 days out. That would be that. Your last speed bench day would be that Sunday. You might do half the number of sets. Instead of doing 8, you're just gonna work up to 4 or 5. Basically, you work up until you start to feel the pop. You start to feel like your bar speed's moving, then you shut it down, hit some accessories, and you're done. Your last max effort day would be on that Monday, 13 days out. That Monday afterwards, just some light accessories. At that point, I shut it down. After that Monday, I shut it down. There was nothing the rest of the week. A lot of other guys took a little bit of stuff on Wednesday and so forth. Now, if you're more advanced and you're going to go and try to peak using more of a Circa max, I'll have JL speak on the advanced side so he can kind of give his take on that, because there's a lot of different ways to utilize bands, chains, Circa max phase, and so forth with the conjugate method. So I'll let him kind of discuss his thoughts on that.
So I have everyone's got their own way they like to do it. And really, I think part of it is too finding what works for you and sticking with that. And just like, I think sometimes people like to listen to too many people, and like you were saying, so I get 4 opinions on how to do it. And then I try to use a little bit from everybody. Like, just follow one way, find out how that works for you, and if you feel like it didn't work well, use another way, but don't try to combine all the ways. You have no clue what's working. So that's kind of the first thing. The second thing is, for me, my big thing was always take your last heavy squat. So you go into the Circa max phase, that last really heavy day, and it's gonna be really fucking heavy. There's gonna be a shit ton of band tension. It's gonna make you feel like you wanna die if it's done right, and that's going to be 3 weeks before the meet. And that was one of the things that I really found, from everybody else and from my own experiences, that if I was using Circa Max and you use it the way you're supposed to use it, if you take that last just fucking, it's everything you got and then some, and that will crush your nervous system. Your nervous system won't recover for 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. And I saw people ride that Circa Max, and then they were strong as fuck. And they'd be 3 weeks out from meet, and they would look awesome on that day. And then all of a sudden, 2 weeks out from the meet, they'd go, I'm gonna take maybe my second attempt. And it would be like, and it was like, holy shit, that's their second attempt. They can do that for 10 or whatever. Mm-hmm. Then they'd go to the meet, open 100 pounds lighter, and fucking couldn't move it. And I saw that happen over and over and over again. So part of that is trust in the system. And what happens is people, they're like, oh fuck, I wanna make sure I can do this, or I wanna make sure I can do, and on another tangent, I see people miss fucking weights in the warm-up room. That's about the dumbest shit ever. But anyway, so with that Circa Max phase, I think one of the most important things for me that was a rule that I never wanted to violate was that last Circa Max workout that I was squatting was a motherfucker. And that had to be 3 weeks out, because I knew my nervous system would not fully recover for that 3 weeks. And I went into meets and I felt great and it was easy and I hit my numbers. I saw a lot of people fall into that where, and even I saw people do it a week before the meet. or you know, and sometimes 2 weeks before the meet, and they look great in the gym and they couldn't get their openers, and you're like, well, what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
And so that's, you know, I think what Dave said is you have to be an advanced lifter, and by the time you get to that advanced part and you're into your Circa Max, you should have a great idea of what works for you. And if you're going into Circa Max and you have no idea what works for you, you shouldn't be in Circa Max because you're not advanced enough. You don't have enough time under the bar to throw all that tension on and to do those things, because you're not going to know how to strain against those kind of weights anyway, and you're probably going to end up getting hurt because you're not going to be able to know how to handle that.
I need, most of us needed to have a 2-week deload, or the last one 3 weeks out, kind of as JL was saying. Now, what we did 2 weeks out might have been just, I used a safety squat bar with 315 back-to-back sets, you know, just light speed work, nothing super crazy, and then basically nothing from that point on. But a point that he's bringing up about not knowing the Circa Max and knowing how to program the Circa Max, the thing that you got to understand if you're going to use any type of Circa Max phase is understand what the word means. All right, Circa Max. That means that you're using super maximal weight. You're using top end weight that could be equal to, very close to, or over what your max is at the top if you factor in the bands and the chains. So you're dealing with Circa maximal weight. You can't go into that training. You got to understand, you need to train to be ready to go through a Circa Max phase. It's not like you're just going to come in and you're going to do 4 weeks of training and then just jump in a Circa Max. You need to this Circa Max, you almost need to enter that meet ready. You know, and then that's going to be what's going to take you that added. That's why Circa Max doesn't work for so many people, because they don't take it serious. They're like, well, that's 6 weeks and the training cycle is going to be 12 weeks. It's like, no, dude, you're going to need fucking 6 weeks just to get ready for Circa Max. You need 6 weeks to get ready for those 6 weeks. You know, this is a lot longer duration than what people give it credit. And that's why a lot of people get into shit sooner than what they really should, and probably shouldn't do the Circa Max and just stick with the regular dynamic training cycle and use that. We used it at Westside for, I mean, Chains and Bands have been around for a long time now, but they weren't there when I got to Westside. I was there for 3, 4, 5 years before these came into the gym. We still fucking broke PRs, still made progress, and we were 800-900 pound squatters. So it's not like you have to do it, you know. It's just another tool, it's another aid to be able to put in there that when the bands and chains were introduced to Louis, myself, you know, Joe Amato, some of the other guys, we had 15 years training experience. You know, people now got 2 years training experience and they want to do a Circa Max phase with fucking chains and bands and, you know, fucking...
You got to get that fucking 250 pound squat.
Yeah, fucking horse on their back and shit. You know, it's just trust in the process. You know, the best specific thing for a beginner or a novice to do is just something like, Dave, you got like 6 weeks of glycogen in your system right now. You know that, so I kind of knew it was going to